Order. This is the 29th meeting of the Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics. Our order today is pursuant to Standing Order 1082, study of the privacy implications of camera surveillance. Our witnesses today are from Google Inc., Mr. Jonathan Lister, Managing Director and Head of Google Canada, and from CanPages Inc., Mr. Olivier Vincent, President and Chief Executive Officer. Good afternoon, gentlemen. We welcome you to the committee's consideration. The committee passed a motion to the effect that the committee study the privacy implications of camera surveillance, such as Google Street View and CanPages, and other issues related to the video surveillance, and that the committee ask Google and its representative and CanPages and its representative to testify before the committee on this subject. We thank you for appearing. We understand you both have some brief opening remarks or demos for the committee. We'd like to proceed. Who's going to go first? Mr. Lister?
Sure.
Please proceed.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having Google here. Members of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Access to Information, Privacy and Ethics, my name is Jonathan Lister, Managing Director and Head of Google Canada. It is my pleasure to be here today to provide you with more information about Street View, the innovative way to view street-level geographic imagery in Google Maps. I believe I can say without hubris that most of you will be familiar with Google. Google is best known for its highly popular search engine. Millions of Canadians use Google every day to search the Internet. Innovation, vision, and commitment to our corporate mission, taking the world's information and making it universally accessible and useful, power the Google search engine. These are the same attributes that have led to the development of Street View, which we are here to discuss today. Google is committed to innovation in Canada and around the world. On a global basis, Google invests billions of dollars in research and development. In 2008, we spent over $2.5 billion on R&D. We are committed to growing our capacity for innovation by creating highly skilled, knowledge-based jobs right here in Canada. We've established offices in Toronto, Waterloo, Ottawa, and Montreal, and Google has world-leading engineers working in Canada, helping to create the next breakthrough technologies, not just for Canada, but with global impact. I'm pleased to tell you that the Great Place to Work Institute named Google Canada the best place to work in Canada, beating out other well-known corporate icons. We also just won the 2009 annual Marketing Leisure Corporate Reputation Survey, which we are deeply proud of. Google is actively engaged in the Canadian business community and within the broader society as a whole. We partnered with a company in Halifax called EcoNova to help create the technology for Google Earth's ocean feature in order to look at shipwrecks. We've worked with the David Suzuki Foundation to develop ways Google can be used to improve education on environmental issues. Our Canadian staff participates in regular community service projects, such as whole-day staff retreats to work on a farm to help provide food for those less fortunate. We are proud of the work we do in Canada, and we take our corporate responsibilities very seriously. Street View's success and popularity should not come as a surprise. Many of us find it difficult to read maps and follow directions. Many of us understand geographical information visually. With Street View, which is a feature in Google Maps, users get the best of both worlds. They get a traditional map, plus they get street-level pictures to help them identify key landmarks. And it's this innovation that makes the product really useful and popular. The UK launch of Street View on March 19, 2009 was so successful that visits, according to Hitwise, to Google Maps UK increased by 41%. I'm confident Street View will have an equally positive response from Canadians. In fact, we know that Canadians are eager for this product. In the last 6 months alone, Canadians have viewed over 100 million panoramas of other countries. Once images of their own country are available, we are sure the enthusiasm for this product will only grow. I agree with Mr. Poilievre's assessment in his National Post op-ed when he wrote, "The presence of Google Street View in Canadian cities is great news. It will showcase our urban life and attract tourists. It will allow parents to preview potential living conditions as their kids leave the nest and go off to university. It will bring us in line with American, European, and Asian cities that have hosted this service. We are confident that individual Canadians and businesses, especially the tourism and real estate sectors, will see the benefits of this highly popular product. Individuals will also be able to use Street View to explore their city. In early 2008, we linked Street View images with driving directions, giving users the ability to virtually see and familiarize themselves with their route before setting off. They can print out their driving directions with photos. For example, in Calgary, McLeod Trail is a major traffic artery at the heart of the city, albeit with too few stoplights and turnoffs. With Street View, people who aren't familiar with the highway can map out their exit and help avoid the fender benders that are all too common. Street View also has enormous tourism and place-based marketing potential. For example, in 2008, we partnered with the organizers of the Tour de France to provide fans with a rider's eye view of the course. We could do the same with tourist events in Canada, such as marathons in Toronto, Ottawa, and Montreal. And imagine showcasing Vancouver 2010 to people around the world. In these difficult and challenging economic times, Canadian tourism and hospitality industries are struggling to cope with changing travel and tourism behaviors. An innovative service like Street View has the potential to change the way these industries market themselves and attract new visitors. This is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of the possible economic benefits to come from a product like Street View. Another use, which we can discuss further if there's interest, is in the hard-hit real estate sector. Clearly, Street View is a product that is changing the way people think about maps. In many facets of our daily lives, the internet is changing how we perform tasks, from banking to planning vacations to researching programs for our children. While changes can create initial unease, we believe they will in the long term benefit millions. The changes in digital cartography are no different. Millions will benefit from the addition of street-level photography to the maps found on the internet. Mapping helps us better understand and navigate the world around us. Mapping data is an integral part of the world's information that Google is innovating around to make universally accessible and useful. Furthermore, since the earliest days of photography, cartographers have taken and published street-level imagery to help map our urban landscapes. The great innovation at Google with Street View is the ability to marry street-level images with digital maps in order to provide a superior product for internet users. I recognize this committee has questions about the privacy implications of this product. Let me assure you that the Google innovation that has driven the development of this product is the same innovation we put into building Street View's world-leading privacy protections. First and foremost, Google is respectful of the laws of each country in which Street View operates. The imagery we make available shows no more than what any of you would see while traveling down a public street. The images in Street View are a snapshot in time, often several months to a year old. They aren't real time. While we only collect images from public places, we have always recognized some passers-by may be inadvertently included in our pictures. As such, Google has invested significant resources into the development of a world-leading process for identifying and blurring certain features in an image, namely identifiable faces and license plates. We've invested a huge amount of engineering talent into the development of this automated identification and blurring technology, which is applied before images are published. Make no mistake about it, facial and license plate identification and blurring, especially at the scale Google operates, is a significant feat of engineering innovation. Another key component to the privacy protections built into Street View is the easy-to-use takedown request system. Every published Street View image includes a report a problem link, which takes users to a simple removals page. Any individual can ask to have an image entirely removed from the publication if it features themselves, their family, their car, or their home. This removal applies even if aspects of the image have already been blurred. We process removal requests every day in multiple languages and offer a fast and efficient turnaround time for each request. Another important aspect of our efforts to ensure privacy protection is our commitment to work with key stakeholders in every country in order to identify and contact relevant local organizations prior to launch. Our team will work to reach out to Canadian stakeholders and provide them with all the relevant details of Street View, including how to have their organization's image removed or blurred from the site. We are also putting into place a system that will ensure that on launch day for Street View in Canada, we will have additional staff on hand to handle takedown requests. Let me close by saying, as with many cutting-edge technologies, the challenge we face with Street View is striking the right balance between building a sophisticated and highly useful tool while ensuring that the data we collect to provide these services is used appropriately. The many people across the US, Europe, and elsewhere who already use Street View to explore their communities, tourist attractions, or cities on the other side of the world tell us that we've created a great, useful product, one that builds privacy protections into the very design of the product. With the addition of Canadian cities in the near future, we look forward to expanding these benefits to many more Google Maps users in the months to come. Street View is a highly innovative advancement in digital cartography. It has won over fans in every country where it has been launched. We have incorporated world-leading privacy protections into Street View, and we continue to work with all relevant stakeholders to improve these protections. Innovation drives everything we do at Google, both around the world and here in Canada. We are very excited to be able to one day soon share Street View, the latest wellspring of Google innovation, with all Canadians. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you very much, Mr. Lister. Mr. Vincent?
Good afternoon. My name is Olivier Vincent, and I'm the President and CEO of CanPages Inc. CanPages is a local search and directory publisher which operates mostly in Canada. We provide a multi-platform, multimedia environment that focuses on relevant local results. And we offer these platforms to users on print, online, and on mobile platforms as well. We have in excess of 3.5 million unique visitors in Canada that come to our website every month with their own local search requests. In 2008, we were very proud to be recognized as the fastest growing online company in Canada. And rich and relevant local content, such as photos, videos, and other immersive media, sets CanPages.ca apart from other directories and local search firms. Our robust online directory combines comprehensive data and a unique user experience with maps and satellite images provided by several partners, including Google. With more than 80 print publications across Ontario, BC, Quebec, and Alberta, the Yukon and the Northwest Territories as well, and with 80,000 customers a year, we reach more than 8 million households and businesses across Canada. We tripled our employee base from 200 to more than 650 employees in the last 2 years. We also offer at CanPages advanced mobile search technologies and multiple search possibilities with free text messages, use a little SMS to mobile phones, mobile map, direct SMS search, advanced WAP, BlackBerry, iPhone, and other mobile application experiences. In March 2009, as part of our ongoing commitment to innovation and to delivering the best search experience possible to customers, CanPages launched Street Scene, its own version of panoramic street photos, initially focusing on the Vancouver 2010 Olympic cities of Vancouver, Squamish, and Whistler. Fully integrated with CanPages.ca local search functionality, Street Scene provides panoramic street-level view of the city so that users can not only pinpoint their search results on a map, but also see high-resolution visuals of their search results in the context of the local environment. For example, users can take a virtual walk down the city streets to a local restaurant or to a hotel. They can see how it looks from the outside before they make reservation. Or they can also assess whether there is a street parking or some other parking availabilities nearby. We are focusing on commercial areas. You will not see focus on residential areas with CanPages. The Street Scene service has been very well received by consumers and tourists alike. We have received millions of visits since the launch of CanPages Street Scene in March of this year, and we have not received a single complaint to date. As a matter of fact, we received overwhelming feedback from visitors and advertisers and businesses alike. At the same time, CanPages considers the respect of privacy as a key priority and is sensitive to the privacy concerns that might be raised by individuals who were photographed during the preparation of the data required by the Street Scene service. And CanPages is committed to bring every individual the assurance that it will respect every individual's privacy and has publicly stated its privacy policy regarding its Street Scene service. Let me go through some of them. We will notify the public before we start shooting. Individual faces and other recognizable features like license plates are being blurred on the captured image prior to being posted online. The blurring process uses a proprietary technology that is irreversible by the users. But also the original non-blurred files are being destroyed after blurring and before being posted online. There is no way to get back to these original files later on. Users can report any concern at any time using the report of concern feedback located on every single image. And upon a specific request, CAN pages will provide extra blurring for an entire person, a vehicle, a window, a building, a pet, you name it. While privacy laws are not necessarily reflective of the rapidly growing field of technology, we at CAN pages want to have a proactive approach to all concerns that may be raised. StreetScene is an extremely innovative product and a testament of great progress for online local search. It will benefit consumers, businesses, and even encourage tourism in Canada, we believe. In addition to all that, CAN pages are engaged with the public, with the Privacy Commissioners of Canada, and with Mr. Pierre Poilievre, the MP who filed a motion before this committee to review privacy matters. In conclusion, CAN pages is committed to working both immediately and as part of an ongoing process to address potential privacy issues that might arise as a result of its continuous innovation in the field of local search. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. And if you don't mind, I'd like to give you like a 2-minute run on the system so you can actually see it working live with Canadian data. So if you can direct yourself to these screens, you will see that I've made a search for restaurants in Vancouver. And while I'm finding a lot of results, you know, I've pre-selected some of the ones that I'm interested in up here. And here we go. The first one is an Indian restaurant. I'm just going to click on StreetScene, and I'm going to see that CAN pages takes me directly to a visual of that restaurant. And I can even, you know, move around and have a little look at the surrounding. I can go on the full screen to have a better view of it. And as you can see, I can even walk around. We've got all these little dots here on the ground represent the location of a panoramic view. So every position, you can go and have a detailed look of the surrounding. Here I'm not looking at quite an interesting furniture store in Vancouver. You can see that people's faces are blurred. There's no way to recognize them. And that way I can tour all around. The Vancouver, Whistler, and Squamish area. Not only that, but we can also push the doors of these restaurants or these businesses like I'm doing now. And I'm opening a virtual door into that business, and I'm walking in, and I'm able now to have a look and visit that restaurant. And we're doing that for every business out there, beauty salon, retail stores, etc., to give you a chance to have a total immersive experience. And that whole chain and experience as StreetScene as a particularly important component of it. I can take you now to Whistler. Here we are. These images were taken, I think, right before the winter. There is no snow on the mountain, but I'm even here in a walking area, part of Whistler, and here we go. I can go up and down the whole city of Whistler. We have the Sea-to-Sky Highway that is available, all the nice and appealing areas of Canada, and these beautiful areas are on the StreetScene area. So I hope that gave you an idea of how that can work and how powerful it is in the context of a local search. Thank you very much.
Thank you both. Very interesting presentations. The commercial side, I think, is well understood. The privacy issues probably are the area of most interest. Just as an example, we understand that in Greece, Japan, Germany, the UK, the US, Australia, and now in Canada, privacy concerns have been raised with the jurisdictional authorities. And it is an interesting question about whether or not services such as Street View or CAN pages make the connection with the privacy jurisdictions, whether it be in Canada, the Federal Privacy Commissioner, or where provinces, 3 provinces have their own Personal Privacy Act, whether those privacy concerns were dealt with in advance of commencing the taking of images across the country. And I wonder if maybe as a starting point, both of you could address the way that you conduct your business vis-a-vis privacy concerns.
Google takes privacy concerns extremely seriously. Our commitment is to work with the Privacy Commissioner and to meet all local and federal, provincial laws around privacy prior to launching a product. So we're working with and have been working with the Privacy Commissioner for some time. We're participating in this venue, I think, to answer questions. And we've put world-leading privacy protections into the product. And I think some of these protections are, as I say, not readily available on other like products. So we feel that, like many organizations, as we try to balance out our innovation and driving economic benefit with concern for privacy and creating privacy protections, Google feels it has struck a strong balance and is doing everything it can to meet its privacy obligations.
Okay. Mr. Benson?
Yeah, very similarly to our friends at Google, CanPages takes priority number one on privacy on this service. We have for months now been communicating actively with all the privacy commissioners of Canada, whether at a federal level or at a provincial level. We've had quite a lot of exchange of communication with them, answered all the questions they've had so far. Actually, I was presenting this morning at the GIAC forum here in town, and the Associate Privacy Commissioner, Elizabeth Dunham, was presenting with me at that time, and we had a very good debate in front of a number of industry people around our particular rules. On top of that, we've certainly studied the law very carefully to make sure that we would not do anything wrong. And I must say that at this stage, we find the law pretty efficient and pretty good in describing what can be done and can't be done. And we have really found our interaction with the privacy commissioners very efficient. We find everybody reasonable and willing to understand that, yes, indeed, new technologies are opening new fields and may create concern. But at the same time, you don't want to hamper technology with excessive requirements. And I think we struck a balance. And the feedback we've had so far from all the privacy commissioners is that we're doing the right thing.
Thank you. Mrs. Simpson, please.
Thank you, Mr. Lister and Mr. Vincent, for appearing before the committee, because there are several concerns in speaking with my constituents and other colleagues. Mr. Vincent, to your credit, CanPages gave me a little bit of assurance in your presentation. So I'm going to address this question to Mr. Lister. Google identifies and blurs the faces and the license plates in Street View. But the concern was always the secure storage of the unblurred version of the pictures. So notwithstanding any assurances that we get about the safe storage, I guess my question is, why is there a need to retain the unblurred version in any event? And this was a concern raised by our Privacy Commissioner, Jennifer Stoddart, and I think it's a valid question. I do like the CanPages presentation where the unblurred version is destroyed prior to it even being posted. So why wouldn't Google be doing the same thing?
The best way for me to answer is just to step back for a moment and just maybe remind or just set the context that Google is a company that is driven by innovation, and we're constantly innovating and constantly creating new product, and we think that has great economic benefit and great benefit to consumers, and we think that's been proven on a number of occasions. That being said, the reason that Google retains non-blurred images at all is for product enhancement. So in order to make the product better, Google software engineers keep the photos around for a period of time, during which they do improvements on the product, and for a number of other reasons. But one product improvement or product enhancement I can describe is the product operates at immense scale. So Google is taking, as you can imagine, millions of photos and there are people who are inadvertently and incidentally captured. Google blurs these images at an incredible scale, and although our software is very good, it is not always perfect, and it occasionally generates a false positive. So occasionally the software will mistake, a round sign for somebody's face. And for the purposes of trying to improve the software, we keep the images around. However, Google recently has made a revision to its data retention policy and has decided that it will and needs to keep the images around for an adequate but non-excessive period of time, after which those non-blurred images will be permanently blurred and therefore rendered anonymous.
Oh, okay. There must be other uses, though, because I understand what you're saying about technology, but why would it be necessary to retain all of this? So surely there must be other reasons you're retaining it, and if you can sort of elaborate on that, I'd really appreciate it.
Sure. If I may, the important issue, though, I think, is that we have revised the retention policy such that we will be blurring these non-blurred images. So we will not be retaining any non-blurred images.
Destroying them, is that what you're saying?
We will be blurring them.
So why not just, you'll be, how do you permanently blur, why not just do what CanPages does and blur, destroy the original image, because you certainly don't have to keep every image just to upgrade the technology, but destroy it before you upload it, for the public to see.
I think the scale at which Google operates makes it very difficult for anybody, particularly myself, particularly someone who's not a leader of technology in the organization, to describe the moment in time or the amount, which is the right amount to keep. So Google has made a decision, I think, rather than make a commitment it can't keep, Google's made a decision to blur those non-blurred images after this adequate but non-excessive period of time.
That could be why, and that brings me to my next question. Both Mr. Vincent and yourself have stated that you respect the privacy laws in the individual countries. As a Canadian, my concern is that our privacy law is over 25 years old, has been virtually untouched, and has not kept pace with technology, not even close. And I think that's where the fear is coming from. And obviously it's fears shared around the world. To the chair's point, Greece, Japan, Germany, they weren't all ecstatic when you hear about people surrounding a town or a street that don't want this. It could be that it's based in the fact that there isn't adequate protection under the individual country's law. And I'd like to know how you think that could be best addressed to allay their fears.
If I can maybe take a part of that question for one moment, I think just to put everyone's mind at ease so we don't paint pictures that aren't entirely accurate, I think there are plenty of stories where towns have welcomed the arrival of products like Street View as well. So there are towns that have indicated they'd be very willing certainly for commercial reasons to have the arrival of Street View. So there are lots of great stories as well.
Thank you very much. Madame Tilac, s'il vous plaît.
Good afternoon, Mr. Lister.
Good
Good afternoon, Mr. Lister. Good afternoon, Mr. Vista. You often film in commercial and industrial areas, but do you also film in residential areas? Perhaps I could take that question to start with, if you like. In case of CanPages, we focus on business streets because we put in contact the users and the businesses. So we're not interested in residential areas. Sometimes on these business streets, there are people who live there as well. So there may be some individuals shown, but generally we do not go outside of the business districts. My second question, I saw that in CanPages you said that it is committed to informing the public before any filming. How do you get in touch with them? Well, that's a good question, because it's not that easy. Ideally, we would need to advertise everywhere, and it's not reasonable, and it's not feasible to do. So in our plan, we advertise in the local media, and we advertise a great deal on the internet, where a lot of people come to visit. So we want to be able to alert people that it's possible that at some point a CanPages vehicle may come down the street to take some pictures. Just a side issue, if I might, to pick up on something Jonathan was saying. I was in these vehicles a number of times. You cannot imagine how pleased people are on the street. People follow us. They wave at us. They want to be in the picture. When we stop, first of all, they ask if we're Google. We explain we're not. But the vast majority of people are decided, and they want to be in the pictures. But we're not interested in people. We're interested just in the businesses. You talked about blurring images such as the license plates and the faces, but you did not talk about street numbers, civic numbers, but they're not business numbers. Is there a procedure for blurring as well the addresses of private homes that could appear on your images? I'm not sure what you mean by civic number. Well, the street address number of a house. Well, we think that the address isn't something confidential. It's not private. It's a very public piece of information that allows people to have an addresses. So there are also the addresses of the businesses on the street. So in a particular street number, there might be a dentist or a doctor. So the presence of the street number is important in this particular location. I'm sorry, I get my English and French mixed up sometimes. So we need to be able to figure out where we're at. My final question has to do with the blurred images. To ensure, well, I want to know, you take out the images of young children that might be in your images. For example, let's say a young child on a bicycle who lives in the neighborhood, so that the neighborhood doesn't become vulnerable to criminals or organized gangs. Is there something done to blur the images of children, particularly in your operating system? That is a good question, and my reply is this. Our blurring system, it works so well that there's no possibility of recognizing the child. I think that's completely covered by the general principle of blurring. I don't think that there's degrees of blurriness. It's done completely. So whether it is a child or a particular region or whatever, we don't need to do more because we've completely eliminated the possibility of recognizing the individual. Perhaps Mr. Lister would like to answer the question as well.
I just want to remark on an earlier question, or the first part of your question. You used the word film, and I just want to make sure that the committee understands we're not filming anything. We are taking still photographs. See, these are static images. They are not dynamic. They're not filmed. So I just want to make sure that the committee understands these are photographs. On the last question, I concur with Mr. Vincent. We are blurring all images of identifiable individuals. So we're not making a distinction between adults or children. We're blurring all images. And additionally, you have the ability to easily take down an image. So if there's an image that for whatever reason, they're still troubled by or concerned by, they have the ability to very simply and very easily take it down. On every image, on every Street View image, we have this report a problem link that takes you to a very simple page, and we often respond and take those photos down within, those images down within 24 hours. So, we take this very, very seriously.
Mr. Vincent, you talked about advertising in the newspapers and on the internet, but how can you really be sure that if you're going to be taking pictures in a commercial street, are there brochures that are distributed to tell people that there are going to be some pictures taken of their street? And when you talk about taking down the images, do you explain to people that this is something that they can do and how to go about requesting that it be done? That's a good question. Two parts to my answer. First, we have to be reasonable here. We're not around the world. We work nationally. So we can't have a vehicle going ahead of the vehicle that passes out brochures. First of all, I don't think it's necessary because we do blur all the images. So there is a limit to what we can do. After that, it's not reasonable. You have to understand that the cost is very high for this type of thing. The second part of my answer is this. When we do this advertising, we emphasize that people can go online, make their comments, to have their image taken down, or any other image if they find it inappropriate. So the advertisement informs them that they can make changes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Lister and Mr. Vincent, for being here. It's good to have a representative of the business community from Burnaby, from my constituency, being here, especially an innovative and growing business from Burnaby. It's good to have you here. I wanted to come back to the issue of dealing with complaints and the speed of removal. Mr. Lister, you said that often within 24 hours, I think was the phrase you used in terms of removing images when you have a complaint. Is there any consistency about that? How many complaints would you get, and how long does it take to remove them?
It's a very quick process to lodge a complaint, put a complaint in, and we respond as quickly as we're able. It depends on the volume. One of the ways that we are trying to further protect privacy and further demonstrate our commitment to privacy protections is that on the day of launch we will have more people working, because we obviously expect increased volume of requests or queries on that day. So we're doing things like that to further demonstrate our commitment to the privacy protections.
Now, I think both services have a place on the screen where you can actually click to be linked to the complaint process. Mr. Vincent, can you show us on the demonstration that you have where
Sure.
that is on your particular version of this?
Definitely, and as I'm doing that, let me add that we also have a process to be able to remove that within 24 hours or even faster than that. We don't want to go beyond 24 hours, but we also give the possibility for people to blur an entire building if they want so, or something that is not necessarily their face. At that time, we want to be able to make a verification. We could be concerned that at some point businesses want to blur the competitor's window. It's a competitive world out there. So we need to have a process to make sure that anything cannot be done, before we have a chance to verify it. But every screen, you can see it on the bottom right here, you'll have a chance to report a concern. And you'll be able to attach the photo that we are concerned about, say whether it's a privacy concern or an inappropriate content concern or another concern. You're going to describe what it is, and you're going to put your email address. There is a little security here to make sure that it's not a computer doing that, and you're going to submit your request, and it's going to be sent to you right away. Let me conclude by saying that despite millions of page views, we haven't had a single concern to date.
Okay. Now, you said that you were going to do a bit of a verification process around that. I'll give you a moment to clean up the disaster here. But the verification process, does it only apply to commercial complaints? It doesn't apply to personal ones, so that there be no attempt to verify if it was a legitimate concern being raised?
No, if it's a complaint about a person, we'll do extra blurring right away because we don't care about it. We are not interested in people.
Okay. And Mr. Lister, is the same true of Google? Is there any attempt to verify the concerns that are raised?
In the case of removing images, again, to demonstrate our commitment to privacy protections, we are going to err on the side of the individual's privacy. So we're going to take down those images. I think the only circumstances under which we wouldn't take an image down are where we are confident that they're fraudulent. We do have agents or customer service representatives who look at these claims, but they, unless they're confident they're fraudulent, if someone tries to take down the CN Tower, we're probably not going to let them do it. But for legitimate concerns that come in, we will take them down. And again, whether it's their home, themselves, their family, their car, we'll honor those and take them down.
Mr. Lister, currently, where does Google hold its unblurred images? Are they held in Canada or are they held offshore someplace?
In all likelihood, they are held in the U.S., but these are all held on Google servers in Google server farms, which are arguably some of the safest places to hold data anywhere. Google doesn't just take privacy seriously, it takes security seriously, and the protocols and the innovation that we apply to securing our physical presence and our digital data is, as you might imagine, world-leading. And right down to the access that is permitted to that data, the hardware that the data sits on, and how we process the flow of data, the traffic data, is all highly structured and highly regulated and industry-leading.
Google service farms, or server farms, is an image that's new to me as a techno peasant here, but it's an interesting one. Mr. Vincent, I think you work with MapJack. Is that concerned? And when you say that the images are destroyed, does that include? Does MapJack have copies of the images, or are all images destroyed before they're posted on the internet in your system?
Absolutely, all images are destroyed afterwards.
Now, is that an electronic blurring process, or is that somehow the disk is gone too? I mean, that's probably old language.
That's a very very precise and technical process that consists in erasing the file and making sure they can't be recovered.
Okay.
And it's clearly described by contract, with our partner on that.
Mr. Lister, when you say adequate but not excessive time, well, can you give us a definition of that? It's a pretty broad statement.
We're working on what that time frame might be, and rather than give you an arbitrary number, I'd rather give you a precise answer. But it's in Google's best interest to make that as short as possible. We're committed to meeting privacy concerns. We need the data for its intended purpose, to make the product better. As soon as we don't need it anymore, our intention is to permanently blur it.
Has a timeline been imposed by any other jurisdiction, to your knowledge, that where Google is offering this service?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. I understand that it's not just Street View and Street Scene that use this kind of process, that most cartography now involves a similar kind of process where images are taken and used in a map-making process. Are you aware of that there are other folks using similar technology, and how common is that to your knowledge?
So what we're talking about here is an innovation in digital cartography. Google's view is we're making maps better, we're making it easier to find things, but there are many organizations that take street-level images. There are companies many mapping infrastructure companies that take similar photos as well. Companies like Navtech and TeleAtlas do very similar things from a data collection and capture point of view. I can't speak to their blurring technology or their takedown technology, but the great innovation that Google brings is marrying these images with topographical maps to make direction finding easier.
Thank you kindly. Mr. Polyev, please.
Thank you for coming. I continue to believe that the potential for this technology is enormous as long as it is applied in a way that respects four key conditions. One is the blurring of faces, license plates. 2, the protection of sensitive locations like clinics, women's shelters. 3, that there's adequate public notification before the pictures are taken. And 4, that the storage of the images does not violate our commercial privacy laws with respect to keeping information about people for which those people have not given consent. I'm going to start with the first issue, which is blurring. And I'm going to share with you a story a constituent offered me. He told me this story the same day I witnessed the Google Street camera driving through a neighboring community called Riverside South, which is a suburban community here in Ottawa, in my riding. He said, and I quote, "I'm selling my father's old home, my father's and my mother's old house, and I have got the front rooms completely stripped and the curtains off the windows, but no one can see. None of my neighbors can see into my house at that level, and I didn't think someone would see me. Anyway, this morning I got up and had a shower, and I walked out of my washroom naked. And I looked over, and just as I looked over, the Google cam was coming by our second floor like a snorkel peeking into the second floor of my house." He goes on to say, "I don't know if it can actually see through windows. I'm sure it can, but I'm on Google naked now for my street. This is bad," end quote. Now, this fellow's name, he's given me authorization to share his name. His name is Robert White, and the residence in question was 835 Stansted Road. And what assurances can you give Mr. White that he will not become an international sex symbol?
I think the best way to address that is quite simply the cameras that we employ aren't designed to look inside buildings, and the photography and the photographic ability isn't that good. We're not seeing, and Google is not seeing, inside buildings. But if I may, the broader picture is, to remind the committee that the intended use is to improve mapping. The intended use is to capture the facades of publicly accessible, available buildings and landmarks. There is no need to see inside, and it's not in the product definition to do that, and Google doesn't do it.
Okay. The photo in question was taken on April 30th, and so perhaps we can work with you to make sure that there are no mistakes and nothing like this ends up online. I have looked online, and there's a website dedicated to pulling images from Google Street View and showing the detail that those images can portray. It's called weburbanist.com, and on this site they have discovered numerous Google shots from Street View where the faces and images are clear enough to be discerned. So I will share these with you at the end of the meeting. How foolproof is your blurring technology?
So I can't speak to the site in question. I haven't seen it, and I can't speak to the accuracy or the quality of those photos either. I will say that we are highly confident, having rolled this product out in 9 countries to date, that we have high quality and really strong technology. So in most cases, almost all cases, the product does exactly what it's intended to do. And in the very rare cases where it doesn't do what it's intended to do, we have our quick and easy takedown policy.
And I congratulate you for doing that. The challenge, though, is that there are some of the people in these images might not know that they are in these images, and in that instance would not be able to have them removed. So what do you have to say about that, given that Canada's commercial privacy laws indicate that no enterprise can have information on any person without that person's consent?
Again, I would step back, and I'd like to maybe paint the picture of the notification and the announcement that we made on March the 24th, 2009, when we announced that we would be driving across Canada or driving through cities in Canada to gather the photographs for Street View. That announcement was picked up broadly across the country, and I think it's safe to say that that is probably the most broadcast collection of cartographic images in Canadian history. So I think through that announcement, we notified the public at large. Having said that, again, I think we have a industry-leading takedown policy, and a policy, I might add, that other forms of media, so the newspapers, if I'm captured on the front page of a newspaper inadvertently, the same way I might inadvertently be captured, I don't have that recourse that Google offers. If I'm captured in a pan shot on broadcast news, I don't have the ability to, first of all, I don't get my image blurred, but I don't have the ability to have that image taken down. So I think Google is really trying to lead by example and set industry standard privacy protections practice.
You mentioned journalistic images. They, as well as artistic and literary purposes, are specifically exempt, expressly exempt under Canada's commercial privacy laws. Do you think that your mapping program should be expressly exempt from Canada's commercial privacy laws?
I think that well, actually, I would probably start by saying I'm not a legal expert, so I can't make a legal judgment call, and I shouldn't speculate, although I think it's reasonable to assume that, given the history of mapping as an artistic enterprise, that mapping and cartography have long been considered, and I think there's precedent been set that maps are considered a form of artistic expression. So I think there's an argument to be made, yeah.
Thank you. Following on one point, on the public disclosure, and I think there was quite a number of members of this committee were unaware until that particular newspaper article appeared that Street View even existed. So the question is, what public notice were you required to give subsequent to having discussions with the Privacy Commission?
We gave notice through the 24th of March 2009 announcement, and we have subsequently, through a website that we have recently posted, announced the locations where we're currently driving. And I think that combined, in our mind, satisfy the requirement to notify. I think we've done a good job, again, trying to balance out the notification period and the product development.
When did you start taking pictures?
We started taking pictures. When did Google start taking Street View pictures? To the best of my knowledge, I think we started taking pictures in 2008. However, 7, thank you. However, I think what's probably more important for the committee to know and to understand is that we will not be using images prior to March 24th in the product. So any images that we captured prior to March 24th when we made the national large-scale public announcement won't be used in the product.
Thank you. Madame Zirac, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You're talking about innovations in cartography, Mr. Lister, but can we really call this cartography mapping? These are images, they're places. How can you define that as being cartography, even if we're talking about an innovation?
In digital cartography, I think this is an incredibly important innovation in digital cartography. I think what Google has done extremely well is marry the street-level images with the topographical maps. This provides an entirely new way for people to navigate.
So there's an alliance of an image and a map, but you're talking about an innovation in cartography. I'm not sure we can call it a map. Both of you said that you comply with existing legislation, existing privacy legislation. Do you seek out the approval of municipalities where you go to ensure that you are obeying the laws in place? I'll take that question perhaps first. Just to come back to your previous question, we're talking about an experiment, an immersion experience, which is much more powerful than just showing maps. I prefer that we talk about the legislation. Well, as far as the legislation goes, we looked at it various levels, all the legal aspects by major legal firms to make sure that we were complying with the legislation. We talked about the active communication with all the privacy commissioners, all of whom tell us that we haven't done anything illegal, and they provide support in terms of our proactive approach. As far as the municipalities go, we haven't asked for specific permission, but we tell them that this information is available. You don't ask for the approval. I do have their approval on this site because we know that they use this information for their own purposes, but you didn't get the permission. Did you look into municipal laws? I believe so. I believe so, but I'm not a legal expert, but I think we did. Is it easy to comply with the current legislation? Because the legislation was written before this new technology came around. So is it easy to comply with the legislation because we're talking about new technologies here? Well, I think it's quite clear that the world of technology evolves very quickly and that legislation doesn't always follow quickly enough. This legislation came into being long before internet or street scene. So nevertheless, I think this legislation was created with a great deal of common sense. We are trying to apply that in what we do. I think it's quite reasonable. It seems to me that what Google does and what CanPages do ensures that there is a very high level of privacy protection, but it might be a good idea to review this legislation because of the new technologies we have. I think that's up to you and as parliamentarians to talk about that. You said something earlier that concerned me. You talked about 3.5 million visits in your case, more than that. These are the visitors. You were proud of that because you said there are no complaints, but I'm very concerned because we know that the Internet hasn't always been used for positive purposes or appropriate purposes. There's a lot of exploitation that goes on the Internet. You said earlier that you don't go into residential districts, but we know that in municipalities, businesses are mixed in with residential dwellings. So this 3.5 million people who are visiting your site, so they can find areas where you can see children, even if you can't distinguish the face, but you can see that there are a number of them in the neighborhood. Doesn't that disturb you? Because we were talking about municipalities. If we ask questions of people, the most important thing for people is safety, and particularly the safety of their children.
Well, takes safety extremely seriously. And I think in this case, the best answer I can give is that the images in question were taken in public places, and they're nothing that any of you or anybody else couldn't see walking down a street at a moment in time. They're static images, often months, maybe years old, that any individual has access to. And I think the important thing to note is that we provide the ability to take those images down, but we take the privacy and security extremely seriously.
Thank you. Mrs. Block, please.
And welcome to both of you here today. As we've established, Mr. Poilievre has established that Canadians should not have to worry about being captured in compromising situations. And what I want to talk about is just the vulnerable in our society. The vulnerable need to be safeguarded, and Google and CanPages need to assure Canadians that predators are not able to use this technology to take advantage of the vulnerable in our society. You have said that the images of individuals and license plates will be blurred. I have many shelters in my riding of Saskatoon, Rosetown, Biggar, and I do note that Saskatoon is one of the cities that is on that is listed to be photographed by Google Street View. And so I would like to understand, will this blurring extend to sensitive locations such as these shelters, because many of these shelters are in public places or in business sections of my riding? And how can you ensure that the privacy of these vulnerable individuals will be protected?
In addition to working with the Privacy Commissioner and the committee and local law enforcement officials, we plan on reaching out to umbrella organizations in advance of launch to notify them of both the blurring technology and the takedown process, such that any organization that feels, for whatever reason, an image of their location might be sensitive, has the ability to take that down. So we'll be as proactive as possible and work with the stakeholder organizations. Again, reminding the committee, though, that these are images that anybody can see through a number of different sources, be they books, maps, local level imagery.
Okay, thank you.
I totally concur with Mr. Lister's statement. I would just add that in the case of shelters, which is a very sensitive one, we've thought a lot about what could we do to go even further, and realize that, first of all, we have complete blurring, so privacy is guaranteed, but it would be dangerous actually to provide extra services around shelters, because it would suddenly attract attention to why is this building blurred. And therefore, the best thing about shelter is that nobody knows where they are, and it's going to remain like that.
Thank you. I'd like to turn the rest of my time over to Mr. Polyev.
Yes, I understand the privacy officials in Greece have raised some concerns about Google Street View, and they have asked that the images are no longer taken until certain understandings can be reached. Is that correct?
I can't speak to the precise issue in Greece.
Okay, that is what has been reported here. The Ottawa Citizen reported that on the 12th of May, and I understand one of the concerns relates to the preservation of images, of unblurred images in Google's possession. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Canada's commercial privacy legislation, that's the Personal Information Protection and Electronic Documents Act, indicates that no enterprise can possess the personal information of a citizen without that citizen's knowledge and consent. Now, knowledge, I believe, can be given through public notification. Consent is much more difficult. You can't stop along the street and ask everybody whose images you're taking. But you are, in Google's case, keeping them in your possession without the permission. And this does raise some important privacy concerns. How are you prepared to allay those concerns? Are you prepared to give commitments of a time frame before by which any captured unblurred image will be deleted?
In working with the Privacy Commissioner's office and committing to not launch this product, and I remind you it hasn't been launched yet, to not launch this product until we've met our privacy and legal obligations is the first way that I can assure the committee of our commitment to privacy. Regarding a timeline, however, I've said that we and Google have decided that Google will not hold those non-blurred images beyond an adequate and non-excessive time, which is in Google's best interest to be as short as possible. So the best way I can answer this question is to tell you that over time we will determine, based on both the need and what is deemed non-excessive, we'll determine what that time frame is and report that time frame.
I appreciate you've been very good corporate citizens working with the Privacy Commissioner, but there are some concerns about having that data. That's a lot of data to have on millions of people, their whereabouts, the company they keep. That gives a lot of power to your enterprise, and I'm sure you can understand that we would want to have a clear definition of adequate time before giving our support, our unbridled support to the practice. Can you appreciate that?
I think the best way to answer that question is to, again, just remind the committee that the pictures are of publicly accessible places. So they're, these are images and individuals and places that are readily accessible. And the fact that Google is going, I think, beyond a lot of other organizations that capture data speaks volumes to our commitment to privacy, and the fact that we commit to blurring those images permanently and not retaining those non-blurred images also speaks to our commitment to privacy and our commitment to individuals' privacy protection.
Okay. Of course, yours are for commercial use. Ordinary other access is not for commercial use. There is a difference. That's why we have a PIPEDA, the Act. Mr. Nadeau, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Vincent and Mr. Lister. There's something going through my mind. I understand that we can't stop progress and that with technology as we know it, computers, the distribution of images and information and whatever, on search engines, it is a huge technological revolution. But I'm thinking of Big Brother watching us. Or I'm thinking of our friend George Orwell, who wrote about this. When we have the ability, I'm thinking of your companies, your images can be used by others. They can go to your search engines. And when we read articles, for example, in the Independent of last March, a British newspaper where it said that it's a gift to criminals. At some point, the use of this technology, and I'm not saying that you're people who don't comply with the law, but it has to do with the way in which this information can be used. Are there any guarantees? Is there anything in your approach or your outlook to ensure that the people and the businesses and places that you photograph aren't used by people with bad intentions? Then I'll come to privacy and security and safety. Perhaps I can answer part of the question. First of all, to say
when you innovate, you always go into some new territories that create questions and that sometimes create fear. After years of Google Street Views around the planet, I am not aware of a single incident where something really bad happened to somebody or even slightly bad happened to somebody. There's been a few urban myths, but nothing has really come out. When I hear that journalists would say it's an instrument given to criminal, to me it's equivalent to saying cars, allow bank robbers to run away from the scene of the crime, and therefore we should forbid cars. To me, it's too overreaching. I see so many thousands of opportunities to use those maps and those street views to enhance everybody's life, to connect people together, to help them to know each other better, which is what communities are about. That's what communities are about, and I think that's what we're doing. I think that's the real story here. On top of potential privacy risk, yes, we know they are here, but I really have the sense that at the moment, with the blurring, with the elimination of the files, with the report of concern mechanisms, I don't see any ways that privacy is in danger.
You know, I largely concur with Monsieur Vincent. I think we're in a period of dramatic change right now, much of which has incredible benefit to society. And I think Google tries to be a hallmark and tries to innovate as well as or better than any company. And one of the things Google does really well is it considers itself a participant in this digital ecosystem and a facilitator for innovation. And by that I mean there are small businesses and organizations in and around Canada, in all the constituencies, in all the ridings, who use Google products, mapping being one of them, where they integrate mapping into their products, driving their economic benefit and pushing their economic benefit forward. And I think we've already talked about CamPages themselves being one of these organizations who use the Google platform to further their economic benefits. So these are just some of the positive benefits. And again, Mr. Vincent is right. We have received fantastic feedback and largely positive feedback in every country that we've gone into. And we've received many good news stories. I mean, everything from the mayor of London is on record talking about what a great product Street View is. We have many accolades, if positively, about Street View once it's been launched. So, while change may be daunting, I think that we are in the middle of this, and we're pushing forward and trying to drive great economic benefit.
Thank you. Mr. Hebert, please.
Thank you both for being here. It's a delight to discuss this issue with you. I have a number of questions, so I'll ask for your comments to be brief, but I just wanted to start with a bit of a brief preamble. Mr. Lister, you made the comment that the intended use, you've used that phrase more than once, of this technology is, and you listed the benefits associated with it. I think what you're hearing around this table is more a concern about the unintended consequences of the use of this technology, something that may not have been anticipated when it was first released. My first question has to do with the advanced notification. You've mentioned that you made an announcement on March 24th about this technology rolling out into Canada without any specifics, without naming which cities, on which dates, or even which weeks. I'm wondering, what is Google's expectation for the saturation of this information? Are you planning to do more than just the announcement on March 24th? Or how are you going to communicate to the communities that are being affected, perhaps even the neighborhoods, that they can expect the car to be coming around to take pictures on such and such a day, or such and such a week, or at such and such a time of day, so that people who don't want their car, even with the license plate blurred, they don't want it to be visible. Perhaps it's a very nice car and they don't want the world to know that they have that kind of car. Or perhaps they want to hide the kids' toys. Or perhaps they want to mow the lawn or close the curtains because their home will be on display for the world. To what degree will you be notifying these neighborhoods about when this is going to be happening and when they can take steps to address these issues?
So Google, through its 24th of March notification, through the website that I talked about where we have published the locations of cities where we are currently driving, and through the continued and ongoing press that Google is generating, we've done press interviews today. We continue to do press interviews. The presence of Street View drivers will continue to become more and more well known, I think, among the general public, and we feel that is a really efficient, credible, and effective way to get the word out that we're driving. To the matter of people who want their images to look a certain way, I mean, we and Google feels, having done this in 9 other countries and having had the cars drive around all the other countries, as a practical matter, there isn't a way to be very precise about when those cars are driving and where they're driving for everything from weather conditions and traffic conditions right through to the fact that we don't want to encourage exhibitionism. There are, there are a number of different reasons why we can't be exactly precise, but I feel that we have both met our obligation and met the consumer need by publishing the driving locations on the site.
My next question deals with the removal of the images. You mentioned that that's an option. I'm wondering to what degree, it's related to the last question, are you notifying people about this option, that they can actually have their images removed? Is there any justification required, or can anybody simply say, my image is there, I have no reason, but I don't want it there?
Privacy is incredibly important. We are going to err on the side of privacy protection, so Google will take down those images. As I said, the only occasion on which we won't take down an image is if we're highly confident that it's fraudulent. Other than that, we want to err on the side of individuals' right to privacy and take that image down at their request.
Okay. Now, I get the sense that the technology has been around for a number of years. Has this technology ever been cited in any kind of a civil or criminal case where a plaintiff made the claim that as a result of this technology, they were more vulnerable to either a property crime or a personal injury? Has Google ever been cited, not as a plaintiff per se, but simply cited in a lawsuit where somebody makes the claim that this technology made them more vulnerable?
Not to my knowledge, and I think when individuals use the product, you'll realize where its limitations and abilities are. And if I may, I can give you a quick example of where it's been used to great benefit. There was a case, I think a couple of weeks ago, I'm not sure the exact time, we can get that for you, when the police in Massachusetts used Street View for its intended purpose to recover or find a little girl who'd been kidnapped in Massachusetts, and they found her in rural Virginia, and they used Street View after locating the general area through GPS on the cell phone, had used Street View to find what the type of buildings were in that area, and they found that one of the buildings was a motel, and they felt that that was the most likely place where the girl was, and they were able to recover the girl, and I think through a creative use of the tool. And that's what we see. We see when the product is launched, individuals and commercial interests find more and more beneficial uses for the product, and this is why it's been widely received.
Thank you. Mr. 6A, please.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Lister, does Google depend on the media to do the notification? Is that where the bulk of the information gets out about how where Google will be photographing?
We meet our obligation, I think, to under the Privacy Act, and we certainly use the media, and we certainly have been covered in the media quite broadly over the last number of months on the product.
Has Google taken on any advertising, posted notices on the on the search engine homepage, that kind of thing, where folks might encounter this information in other ways other than reading about it or seeing it on the television?
The March 24, 2009 coverage was, frankly, so significant, and the subsequent coverage that we're getting in the media has been so significant that this has proven to be, we think, a very compelling and effective strategy for letting people know that the product is out there, or rather that we're driving cars and intending to launch the product.
Okay. I guess this goes to both Mr. Vincent and Mr. Lister. You have a commercial purpose in mind when you're using this information. I guess you're trying to get people to visit your website so that you're making money somehow by offering this service. Would you agree with that statement? That there's a commercial purpose behind?
Absolutely. However, I would just remind the committee, Google, through its intentions to innovate and through its innovations, provides an incredible amount of free services to both consumers and businesses, whether it's our search engine or Maps or Gmail. We're providing an enormous amount of free services. At the end of the day, this product will be part of our mapping portfolio, part of our Maps product, and we advertise on Maps, or we sell advertising on Maps, so we'll absolutely be commercializing the product. But it's part of a broader strategy to have Google as a platform that can be built upon, and a part of that is giving away a tremendous amount of free services to consumers.
Sorry, Mr. Vincent, just let me expand it a bit. That the privacy commissioners, the Canadian, Alberta, British Columbia, and Quebec, did raise in their fact sheet about this the issue of that one of the key protections, I'll just quote from their document, one of the key protections under Canadian privacy law is that you should know when your picture is being taken for a commercial reason and what your image will be used for. Is that an interpretation of the law that Google and CamPages would agree with, and does it affect how you see the issue of notification?
I can try to answer that. Indeed, we are a business, and so there has to be an ultimate commercial purpose. People's silhouette appearing on our blurred images is an accident. We're not taking people's photo for commercial reason. Actually, we don't want them in a photo. If we could not, that's why we take them away and blur them. So in that sense, I don't think we're exploiting these images for commercial purposes at all. At the end of the day, we do connect buyers and sellers, but many people use the service for free to have a general tour of the area, and there will be absolutely no commerce conducted. They find it beautiful, they find it useful. We help families find new neighborhoods. We help entrepreneurs find new real estate. There is although it may sound amusing, but there is a feel-good purpose behind it. It's a beautiful product. We were the first one to bring it to the country, and we know it's overwhelmingly enjoyed by the people using it, and that feels good.
And I have to admit that I am a happy user of the service, many times actually, so I'm going to be clear about that. Mr. Lister, in Japan, I understand that there was a particular cultural issue around a different sensibility around privacy, and that Google recently made a change to lower the camera so that it didn't see over the fences that people commonly have in front of their homes. Has Google seen those different kinds of cultural differences in other places? Do you expect to find that in Canada, where we're a multicultural society and may not have a sort of a uniform understanding or expectation around privacy?
Part of the beauty of what I get to do for a living, and part of the beauty of what Google does and the industry we work in, is that it changes all the time. Part of the reason I'm here today and Google's here today is to listen and learn, and we're more than open to I think, finding out the unique and important local and relevant concerns, and that's part of what this process is all about. So as we uncover them, and part of the reason we'll work with stakeholder groups is to uncover some of these local issues that we can't possibly be aware of in advance. And as you'll see evidence of in the Japan example, we take measures to meet the privacy concerns and obligations.
Thank you. Mrs. Simpson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just to pick up on what Mr. Sixay's line of questioning was, not only were there concerns, but I understand that all of Japan's imagery was being reshot. There's obviously a huge price to Google for doing that. And what I'd really like to know from you is, I'd like you to elaborate on that concern. That's my first question. And my second question to both of you is that I didn't get a definitive answer. Do you have any definitive numbers in terms of complaints that you've received from individuals? Obviously, we know from Japan, but, personal complaints that you received on the toggle on your sites.
Sorry, I missed the first question. Do you mind repeating? You were following on Mr. Sixay's question, but I didn't catch what you wanted.
What the exact nature of the Japanese concern was, because the information that we received is that all of Japan's imagery was being reshot, and that's obviously at a significant cost to Google. So there must have been some merit to it. Specifically, I'd like to know what the nature of their complaint collectively would have been.
I don't know the nature of the complaint, but what it speaks to is our willingness and Google's willingness to redrive an entire nation if we feel the complaints are founded, or if we're in agreement that there are justifiable complaints. And I might add, we're redriving all of Canada as well. Maybe not all of Canada. We started to drive Canada, and we decided not to use that imagery. So, as you say, at great expense, we are redriving the nation.
So, Mr. Ilster, a whole country's being reshot, and your testimony is that you can't tell us what the exact nature of the complaint was with respect to the Japanese concerns.
In Japan, no, I don't know we can get it for you. I don't know the nature of the complaint.
I'd really appreciate that, because that's a whole country being reshot. That's significant.
Well, as much as I can, I'll try to find out and get you the nature of that complaint.
And for both of you, just an idea of the number of complaints that you receive online, you know, where people have requested that their images, their house, whatever.
Just 0 complaints, none, not a single one. We've had a few people use the mechanism to give us suggestions, which I found pretty amusing, and many of them were good suggestions, actually. So that was nice. But complaints, none to date.
Mr. Lister, any?
I mean, we're a significant, large organization. We get complaints regularly about any number of different things. I'm sure we've had complaints on our site and to our organization about Street View. However, I'm not familiar. It's certainly not a significant number, but what the significant number are the number of positive feedback and positive responses.
No, in terms of when I say complaints, maybe I used the wrong expression. People that have specifically gone on, clicked on, and said, "I want off."
So, is
that something you're tracking?
Right, I'm just trying to clarify. We haven't launched the product here, so there aren't images for anybody to take down.
Elsewhere?
Are you talking about in other countries?
Yes. Oh, yeah, elsewhere, like overall.
Again, I don't know. We can try and get you numbers. I don't have the numbers. All I know is that overwhelmingly the feedback has been extremely positive.
Thank you. Mr. Poilievre.
Thanks again. As stated earlier, we're on this side very excited about this technology. I think you both acquitted yourselves very well. There are 4 concerns that I sought to have addressed today. The one I want to focus on in my last questions is this issue of storage. Mr. Lister, your company is taking millions of images and storing in Canada of Canadians, and storing those images out of the reach of Canadian commercial privacy laws. You're also keeping those images in your possession for an unspecified period of time. And I would suggest to you that this gives your company a degree of power that was not provided for in our commercial privacy laws. Respected journalist Greg Weston listed some of his concerns, and he talked about, for example, biometrics. Right now, we have technology that can identify people by their fingerprints, by their eye retinas. It's not unreasonable to expect that one day they could be identified technologically by the unique shape of their faces. If you have millions of images of people, you have the time and place in which those images were shot. You have the company in which people find themselves when those images are shot. You are going to have an enormous amount of personal information about millions of people, and without their express consent. How do you see this complying with Canada's commercial privacy laws?
I just want to remind the committee I'm not a lawyer. I can't speak specifically to the laws in question. I can talk more about how we plan on using the product, and in fact what is Google's view on our consumer relationship. Google believes very, very strongly in transparency and user choice. And I think it's fair to say we believe in that more so than many other organizations out there. So we offer many ways for consumers to find out how their data is being used, change their data, and take their data down if they're uncomfortable with how they've used that data, how Google has used that data?
I'm not focusing on that concern. I'm more concerned about the data that you have about people that they don't know you have, that you store at server farms outside of Canada that are unblurred and in your possession for an unspecified period of time. We want to find a way to make this work with you. Would Google entertain the idea of putting a time limit on the unblurred images it keeps at its server farms?
I think that's exactly what I said we were going to do. The fact is we will come up with this time. We will share this time frame with the committee when we can appropriately articulate what it is based on our technical needs balanced out with privacy interests, and we'll share that with the committee as soon as we have a reasonable and accurate answer.
Can you guarantee to Canadians that you will not sell these unblurred images for commercial reasons to other enterprises?
Google doesn't sell personal information.
Thank you. How much time do we have?
Mr. Hebert is up. He had a
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A few questions following my colleague. He talked about the data being stored outside of Canada. My question is, does the U.S. Patriot Act apply to the Canadian photo data as a result of the fact that it's not being stored in Canada but is in fact being stored in the United States and could be seized by the U.S. government without justification at any time?
Yes, but if the data was stored in Canada, it could also be seized. I think it's under the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty with the U.S., so there's no difference. I think it's immaterial where the data is stored. It's a fact of the digital economy that as the economy grows and as the global economy grows, putting up protectionist barriers around the flow of data, I think, is going to prove troublesome to countries like Canada, and we're, in our opinion, in my opinion, far better off finding ways to help facilitate and ensure the safety of cross-border traffic and data rather than trying to stop it and protect it. But as the Privacy Commissioner herself has indicated, I believe, on a number of occasions, some cross-border data flow is not in and of itself a privacy concern.
You also mentioned that there was photos taken in 2008, or essentially photos taken prior to March 24th of this year. You said those photos would not be used. Can you confirm that those photos will be destroyed?
Maybe I probably haven't done a very good job, or clearly I haven't done a very good job of answering this question. There are non-blurred images that have been taken. When the photographs are originally taken, they are non-blurred. There is a blurring process that Google does to blur those photos. Any images that are non-blurred, so actually let me step back. So there are actually two copies, right? There is, and I think this is important, there is a blurred copy and a non-blurred copy, and after this adequate but non-excessive time, the blurred copy, the non-blurred copy becomes blurred.
I understand.
And therefore all images are blurred.
I understand, and I did hear your answer earlier, but my question was, you've said that you won't be using the photos taken prior to March 24th, and it dawned on me that perhaps the appropriate thing to do would be to make Canadians rest assured that those photos will never be used, and you could just simply state that they'll be destroyed. But I heard your additional answer. Now, the federal and provincial privacy commissioners have put out a statement, and in that statement they indicated that they believe that companies that engage in this activity have to let citizens know, among other things, when these photos will be taken. And that includes notification using a variety of media, local media outlets, outlining the dates and the locations for filming and the purpose for the filming and so on. Now, earlier I asked you about what steps you'd be taking to notify Canadians. Clearly, the privacy commissioners have raised an expectation that local media outlets should be informed of the dates and the locations of when these pictures will be taken. Does Google have any intention of fulfilling that request from these privacy commissioners?
So we intend to meet our obligation and meet all the legal requirements before we launch the project. And that's what we're here to do today, is to gather concerns. In addition to some of the things I've mentioned already, the fact that we have generated an incredible amount of national press, probably, as I say, the most publicized collection of cartographic images, in addition to the website that indicates the cities that we're currently driving in. The drivers themselves of the cars have one-pagers, like Mr. Vincent's Cam Pages example. People are welcome to come up to the Google cars. They're clearly identified as Google cars. The drivers have these one-pagers. They have contacts at Google that people are able to talk to. We're trying to make this as transparent as possible while still balancing out the practical matter of not giving specific dates for the reasons that I mentioned.
Thank you. Colleagues, we are going to end at 5:30. I have a quick question from Mr. Sixay and one from Madam Tilak. And we also, I've circulated a budget that I would like the committee to consider before we adjourn. Okay? Mr. Sixay.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask both of you if anywhere in the world you've ever had to do a structured or formal privacy impact assessment process with a government agency or a privacy agency?
I'd have to check and get back to you.
Okay. Oh, we're a Canadian organization. That's the first for us.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Madam Tilak.
In the past, we've seen images that were blurred, that were put online by criminals or pedophiles. So they were put up on the internet. And we've also seen police officers managing to unblur these images to identify some criminals. So it may have been done amateurly, but can you give us some assurance that they will never be able to unblur images that you blur these criminals? Yes, absolutely. It's a process that is irreversible. You can't go backwards. In the past, there was a technology that turned the face, and people found a way of turning it back the other way. But now we have a technology that completely erases the face, and it is completely irreversible.
There was a question earlier about the Japan experience and reshooting. The researchers advised that the reason was that the cameras were high enough to see over people's fences into their backyards, and they were asked to reshoot 40 centimeters lower so that there was privacy beyond that. So there are rules in every jurisdiction, and it shows that if you don't do your homework, sometimes it costs a little extra money. In any event, this matter is probably going to carry over with us. Now, Mr. Dreeshen, you also wanted to have one quickie in there? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, just thank you very much, and thank you very much for coming here today. I know that you have to make money doing this, and one of the questions Mr. Sixay had kind of alluded to that. I'm just wondering, when the public has to access your site online in order to have their concerns addressed for their online removal requests, first of all, do you see, is there advertisement that is popping up so they are taking a look at that? Secondly, what happens to all the computer IP addresses when you have these people that are giving you that type of information? I mean, you guys are computer geniuses, so I'm just wondering if that would then be removed from your system after that would take place.
To the first question, I do not believe there's any. I'm reasonably confident there isn't advertising on our takedown page. We can confirm that. To the second question, it comes back to, I think, Google's respect for privacy. We have many examples where we have leading-edge privacy, where we only use personal data, such as in Google Latitude, which is a location-based GPS product, where we'll use that data when people consent to give it to us. And because we believe in transparency and choice, they can opt out of that product at any time. We do this consistently across our products.
Okay, thank you.
In any event, as I was indicating, this matter is obviously emerging communications. There are going to be a lot more input as more and more persons and organizations become more familiar with what you're doing or not doing. I anticipate that the committee may want to, and I think they will want to, continue to monitor this and to hear from other witnesses when the House returns. As a consequence, colleagues, if witnesses would just stay there, I've circulated a budget which anticipates totally seven witnesses, and for witnesses' expense, total amount of $15,900. I'd entertain a motion for the budget for this particular study. Yeah, Mrs. Block. Any discussion? All those in favor? Carried. Gentlemen, I want to thank you very much on behalf of the committee for providing us with samples and representations with regard to this new technology and starting us on a road of considering the privacy implications. I hope that we will be able to draw on your experience and expertise again before we come to any conclusions and maybe make a report on the study. Thank you, and we are...
Thanks very much. Thank you.